Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Today we're doing serious science. I'm Dan Winter, as you know, fractalfield.com, and today we're discussing fractalgut.com, the golden toe, the golden theory of everything, and my amazing co-author, Mark Rohrbaugh. Here, welcome, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yeah, we're gonna talk integrity today, analytical integrity.
Yeah. The
We'll
idea is
pretty
to
much,
show how incredibly compelling the physics becomes when you discover what charge collapse is. So Mark has prepared an outline, and actually I'm just going to put that up here 1 second, Mark. If I may, let's see, Firefox, here we go. Oh, 1 moment, and share. I want to get Mark's outline, just bear with me 1 second, Safari. Here we go. So it's entitled Analytical Integrity. So this is right, Mark, right? This is what you want to discuss, right?
yes, that's
Yes.
the one.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you see, Mark has a very detailed outline and abstract of the compelling solutions in modern physics, which are assembled very coherently in a compelling way by the golden toe, fractalgut.com. And as we warm up to that subject, so Mark is going to be going through this article, and the link to this article is at fractalgut.com, and the link to this article will be below in the show notes as well. However, just as a warm up to get to that point, I'm going to give you the background of how we got here.
Yeah.
So Mark was very much aware with many conversations. We had been working on the fractal nature of charge collapse. You'll recall that perhaps a majority of physicists do agree that charge collapse is a cause of gravity, and many agree that it is specifically fractal charge collapse, and many agree that charge collapse is the cause of consciousness. So that is not really new information. What's new information is what causes charge collapse. And that's what I had been working on for years, and that's kind of where Mark picked off and ran with the ball. So I'm going to give you that background very, very rapidly and briefly in a short summary here. So originally, the website was plancfire.com, Plancphire, Plancfire, like the fire of Planck. Planck being the musical key signature, literally the metric of the quantum foam. So you take the musical key signature of all of physics, Planck, and you multiply by exact exponents, powers of golden mean ratio, fractality perfected, and you get about 200 physical variables. See plancfire.com and elphi.link, which cannot be any kind of coincidence. It's a compelling, undeniable, powerful physics, including specifically three exact radii of hydrogen, the wavelength of adenosine triphosphate, 1.93 angstroms. You get the height versus diameter of the DNA codon, 20 to 34 angstroms, Planck times golden ratio of the 125 and 126 power. You get the exact two wavelengths of photosynthesis. You get the exact British foot, the definition of sacred dimension, charge collapse. You get the Schumann harmonics and the brainwave harmonics for bliss. You get the Mayer wave, you get the Venus year, Earth year, galactic year, precessional year, and 200 physical variables. And Mark extended this, as we're going to discuss in a minute, from his half a lifetime of work on the proton radius. And that's where I'm about to toss the ball to you, Mark, in about 2 minutes. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And
So,
I do want to do a bit of background too before we get into the the outline, you
okay.
know.
All right.
And
So basically, then we concluded that gaining energy during this implosive negentropic fractal charge collapse, golden ratio times Planck, is the electric reason gravity exists. It's the reason objects fall to the ground. It's the electric reason perception and bliss form in the brainwave synaptic array, a liquid crystal vortex that is implosive and centripetal. It's the origin of all centripetal forces and origin of all negentropic forces. It's the electric reason seeds germinate. It's the motor for life force, that charge collapse. It is the real reason soul and bliss exists. It's the reason pyramids and obelisks make global wireless power, a phase conjugate pump wave from Schumann. It's the electric reason zero point in vacuum energy exists. It's the electric reason golden ratio is the dominant geometry of all orbital mechanics, a fractal smoking gun. It's the electric reason electron shells and nuclear hadrons are all simply a platonic nest only, which is golden ratio charge collapse. It is the electric reason for all action at a distance, longitudinal entanglement. We say that entanglement is specifically what golden ratio phase conjugation perfects. So again, how could it be an accident that these only two very narrow bandwidth wavelengths of the only two frequencies that cause photosynthesis, why are they exactly golden ratio times Planck? If any physicist has any other reason to say that these exact wavelengths that make photosynthesis happen are exactly golden ratio times Planck, it is compelling. And ditto, here are the three exact radii of hydrogen. Planck times golden ratio, the 116, 117, 118 power. And we thank Mark for his help with these graphics. So this is a map to the geometry of the radii of hydrogen. Hello, charge collapse, very compelling. And here are the Schumann harmonics predicted by the same golden ratio charge collapse. And here are those Schumann harmonics, a phase conjugate pump wave, measured in the pyramids, how pyramids make negentropy and global wireless power, that negentropic implosion. And here are those same harmonics, 7.83 golden ratio cascade, phase conjugate pump wave, determining the harmonics of brain waves, creating peak perception and bliss. Here's the Schumann harmonics, and here's the equation, Planck's golden ratio, you see? So again, golden ratio, phase conjugate, charge collapse, the mechanism of life force itself. And here's more on the pyramid harmonics. And these are the Schumann harmonics in that cascade. These are the harmonics that cause the sacrocranial pump, the tidals, to work exactly golden ratio times Planck, which are also called the sacrocranial pump wave. The reason Kundalini exists. This is applying to crystal technology. These are the golden ratio harmonics times Planck. And this is the Theraphi and Planck fire physics. And this is that golden ratio caduceus cascade converting transverse to longitudinal waves, which, as we know from Tom Bearden's equations, is the reason, the mechanism, the media of gravity waves, coherent longitudinal EMF interferometry. So we carry on. I'm not going to carry on. Here's the original paper, which Mark has quoted many times, showing compressions, this implosive compression, the hydrogen atom and phase conjugation, the original publication we did with William Donovan, Martin Jones. And this is what it looks like. It's a implosive vortex cascade. This is what's making this work. As for example, as Mark is going to get to later, you take that cascade here in the EM drive, electrogravitically making gravity from microwaves because the implosive collapse creates coherent longitudinal at the tip of the vortex, which we now know how to optimize making electrogravitics once you understand fractalgut.com. So we'd had all that amount of fun, and then Mark, this is where we toss the ball to Mark now. So
Yeah.
Mark had spent half his life studying the proton to electron radius and the proton diameter, and he realized that if you take the superfluid vortex, which is the proton, and you model the density and the speed of that vortex, you accurately newly model the radius diameter of the proton. And then he discovered you take that same critical diameter of the proton, analogous to what we had discovered about Planck, and you again multiply by golden ratio, and he got an incredible additional number of fundamental physical variables. For example, the relationship of the proton diameter to the cosmic background microwave radiation. Why is the cosmic background microradiation tuned by golden ratio to the proton diameter? The answer is charge collapse. And Mark, I'm turning it over to you.
Yeah, so that's what I found interesting as a mainstream chip designer, scientist, physicist wannabe. I was really interested in your work, as you know. So just recapping what we've done is with the ideas you've mentioned, your original founding paper, Klein Gordon, we were able to develop a super golden toe with the six axioms, and it's a 100% score. It solves everything. Now, the new uncovery, which I've mentioned in a few meetings with you, Dan, that I have dogs here, so I'm keep babysitting. So the new uncovery was, as I'm developing the toe, And we're correlating to the mainstream. I'm always having to train the toe. 2, 3 weeks ago, finally realized that, and we'll get to the meat. This is the introductory stuff. I'm like, I need to have the mainstream theories there, but there, all it is there's just a minor correction that's needed. So I asked Grok to investigate it. I already kind of pretty much knew. So what we did, we I ended up having Grok point out, he goes, yeah, there's terms that they drop, and these are the detailed papers that we don't want to go into right now. They're going to be pointed to by our list because it goes over all the different. Have a dog distracting me. So
What Mark is saying is that clear integrity, there are places where the classical physics drop the term and use estimations instead of using actual core integrity in the equations. And when he put the integrity in the equations, suddenly the golden toe got sharp.
right. So what I did was I worked with a fresh session of Grok and had it identify the three main theories, the standard model, general relativity, and the lambda CDM cosmology. We have to go over this so we have a groundwork. So, and I'm not an expert in all those, even though I've become one. I've been claiming I'm cosmologist in chief. But I'm letting Grok, it's a 9 PhD level physicist, Grok 4 expert. So he says, as I say, well, what terms are what's common? He said among the three theories, it's these mass ratio terms. And since we already know that from our toe, I was able to say, okay, well, let's use this correction. He goes, wow, that works. Now, keep in mind, he's got his mainstream there. He doesn't have all of our axioms. And so I want to preserve the mainstream. So you give it the mass ratio term that I derived years ago, and then he likes it, then you tell him how it's derived. And then we've got papers on that too. We don't want to go into all that. You've seen many papers on duplicating how I derived it, how Grok derives it, different
This
derivations.
is proton to
But
electron mass ratio.
mass ratio,
Yep.
right,
Mhm.
which involves the proton radius. So what I'm trying to say is you load up the fresh Grok with all the three-headed Hydra, I like to call it that, and give it the corrections. And he's like, wow. Now he doesn't have the golden stuff yet. He has what he considers a super gut. And then I just gently say, restore the vacuum energy and make sure you correct the galaxy rotation problem and then whisper Klein-Gordon. You know, I don't tell him Dan, I don't tell him golden ratio, and it comes out a toe where the golden ratio is key. The Star Walker, you have to give it a little bit of mathematics. The Star Walker phi transform.
It's emergent and
Yeah,
self-organizing because
right,
we should say Klein-Gordon was the generalized wave equations that showed in general the max form of constructive wave interference, recursive constructive heterodyning, is golden ratio. So golden ratio therefore solves the problem of compression. That was the original paper. And so you go from
right,
there and suddenly when you know what solves the problem of compression, you suddenly learn the cause of centripetal and negentropic forces and
right. And then you connect it to first principles. So where you'd go from the Klein-Gordon is the quantized proton superfluid. Because if you would have had that, you would have been golden. You would have
yeah.
had the whole thing.
It basically, the proton is a tornado. And if you know that the superfluid is charged and you know the speed of the tornado and the variables, the density, suddenly you get the proton radius accurately, the classic tornado. And why is the cosmic microwave background radiation tuned to the proton radius by Golden ratio?
Yeah, and those papers that we've been doing in the Star Walker Phi transform make it easy to understand. So now that to me, as a normie, ex-normie engineer, it's really hard to make that leap. Hey, it's a tornado, it's a vortex. When you got all this other work over here, the mainstream. So that's why we said let's just focus on the mainstream, and that's where we're going next. Is
Yeah,
my outline is
I think we
from the
should.
perspective of a skeptical
Yes, we're
And
pretending that
yeah,
you, our audience, are the skeptic. Mark,
yeah,
should we bring
and
that outline up now? Shall I do it or you?
yeah, I'll bring it up because
Okay, you do it. You go
I
ahead.
want to do a share. I have it
Okay.
up. Let me hit
Yeah, share
share.
screen, go
And if
ahead.
it
So this
and if
this is
there's
basically a concise outline that Mark made with the high points of what is most compelling about fractalgut.com, the golden toe. In other words, what a conventional physicist would find irrefutable. For example, the radii of hydrogen, the cosmic microwave background radiation, the exact frequencies of photosynthesis and DNA dimensions, all predicted by a golden toe, which we then extrapolate to say that is the reason centripetal forces exist, and it's the reason negentropy exists. Good.
so
Good,
you're
Mark, you're
seeing
up
my
now.
screen. Good. Okay.
Looking good.
So,
Go
and
for
I
it.
want to make sure this is the one you started off with,
Yes, it
Saturday.
is. Yes.
Good. So let me just
Analytical
refresh.
integrity, the overlooked
Yeah.
key to unifying physics, a tutorial guide for skeptical colleagues. In other words, if you restore exact integrity to the variables that have been glossed over in the conventional equations, suddenly conventional physics agrees with the golden toe and predicts all the solutions.
Right. And they even merge together well too. So we'll stick with the paper and I am one of these skeptical colleagues too, but I'm like looking at the data and looking at your work and the math, and it's incredible. So the history. I'm going to kind of read over this a little bit, Dan. Let me
Maybe zoom in. Can change your
zoom
view
in a
to
little
zoom.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
zoom
can
in
zoom
one
in more.
on there. Yeah, that's right. Zoom in a little bit more. That's
I can
better. A
do.
little better. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
better.
I can actually do more because I don't need the side
That's
stuff.
good. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, now it's more readable.
we don't need my bozo the clown over there. My
Go ahead.
founding boson. I mean,
Here we are, the
so
concise summary.
yeah, so let me scroll through it first a little bit because I got to we have an abstract. We're gonna go over the history since James Clerk Maxwell, which I studied this stuff in college, the Maxwell's equations and all that. Historical introduction, historical oversight, defining analytical integrity, step-by-step derivation of the key toe elements. And these are the things I want to kind of talk through. Uh, and after this, it's just you know we don't need to worry about. But then we get to the bullet list. This is where we're going to do 2 minutes per point. So these are the different areas that we want to talk about. And I'm not an expert in all of them, but we're going to be able to figure it out, both of us together.
Compelling solutions at each bullet point.
Right. So before we get to the bullet points, I just want to go over the historical attempts because for me, even learning the history was good. The quest for unification traces back to the 1865 Maxwell his equations. So I learned them in college and in the 80s, but it's just moved onward since there with Einstein's work. And if you study each step along the way, from the 20s onwards, each of the classical attempts failed due to incompatibilities. It's probably okay to read this, Dan, because some of
Yeah,
this stuff is really good.
right.
So there was incompatibilities with quantum mechanics and lack of experimental guidance. Subsequent developments, including the electroweak unification in the 60s and the grand unification theories, GUTS, in the 70s, progressed incrementally but stalled on quantum gravity, the hierarchy problem, the cosmological constant discrepancy. String theory and loop quantum gravity offered promises but introduced complexities like extra dimensions and vast parameter spaces, often without falsifiable predictions, falsifiable. Now, we want to talk about this because there's a lot of work that's gone on. A common thread in these delays is an oversight of analytical integrity. Derivations often tolerated ad hoc assumptions, infinite mass approximations, and bound systems. That's quantum mechanics, the proton solid state theory. They use infinite mass for the proton, drop off the inverse of the proton electron mass ratio. They ignore all kinds of things, even the vacuum energy ignored. And this tutorial, what we're saying is we're going to enforce integrity, which is rigorous consistency across scales. and it reveals unification as a straightforward mist due to entrenched paradigms. So we're going to guide skeptics through derivations verified by simulations. So this was what I just came up with a couple weeks ago, Dan, because with our axioms, I'm like, why isn't anybody getting it? And I also have to do a lot of work to make Grok transition from what it thinks is the best theory to ours. Anyways, I said, let's just stick with analytical integrity, and you can almost get Grok to solve this itself. And that's a future video. So by defining analytical integrity, we're going to be able to talk about it. It's the principle of ensuring logical consistency, which is no contradictions between components. For example, Lorentz invariance and the standard model is preserved in general relativity extensions. Mathematical precision. Where this is why I'm here, because I love math. Exact derivations without approximations unless justified. And it's this corrected reduced mass, effective mass stuff, which, it gets you some technology, but it doesn't get you to what's really going on in the universe. Empirical alignment, very important. The predictions match data without tuning, you know, no ad hoc elements. So integrity, and the simulation verification using symbolic Python for symbolic manipulation, they confirm basic identities. I did this on paper in the 90s, early 90s and 80s in my head. I want to mention a little bit about integrity in the 70s back here when the grand unified theories progressed incrementally. I was in high school in the 70s when my teachers were going crazy because they're the ones that are not only teaching us chemistry, physics, and calculus, they're the ones that are the head of the Key Club in the National Honor Society, teaching us the ideas of honor, integrity, and the virtues, and being of service to the community through the Key Club. They're up there teaching us that, and they're also freaking out about the fact that the proton electron mass ratio was dropped, the inverse of it was dropped from the equation. In the 70s, they're freaking out. So I just say that because we are in an information war right now.
And that's what triggered Mark to spend half his life on perfecting the proton to electron mass ratio, which is that equation right there.
Right. So you use a little bit of honor, integrity, and you say, wow, okay, so go to the mainstream guys now. Just tell them, go look at your theories. Oh, and we got a link in the paper, Dan. Maybe I'll just mention it real quick as I'm talking about this. The three main theories, they drop off the terms, like right here, the proton electron mass ratio and boundary value problems. We're going to start with the standard model in QED, quantum electrodynamics, and solve the proton as a composite via a boundary value problem on a U3 manifold. Now, I left it all in here because Grok, I said, let it preserve its stuff, even though on paper I did this equation, which he agrees with. He comes around it a different way. And our other papers that I'm going to link in here later, because I just did this today, uh, already has our full derivation, me doing it, Grok doing it, from our axioms. Now Grok has a whole new way of doing the mass ratio from its stuff. And, I need to review the math here, but it's coming out with some stuff that's right on, agrees with our main founding formulas.
Very accurate.
Everything's tied together. So I'm leaving this in. Now, I'm not an expert on everything. I listened to Leonard Susskind out of Stanford for years. So we can handle all the math if we need to. And the point of putting it here is for everybody who's a STEM person, so they can look at it from many different perspectives. You come in from our axioms and vortex and tornadoes, and even Harriman's solving for the vacuum energy. That's all you need. You just need some first principles tied to the vacuum ether, and that's what you do, Dan, and Harriman does, and the answers come right out of it.
Yeah.
The mainstream guys can't see it because they got all these silos, broken focus,
And the
even
vacuum
our
ether is essentially tied to Planck. That's the tuning of the vacuum
right,
ether, as it were. Yes.
right, and they've dropped a lot of that stuff out. So now, so if we look at standard model, solid state, they're dropping out these terms, and our other papers actually identify it. As we go through the other theories like general relativity, this thing maybe down below it does, but general relativity and the cosmology, uh, they're dropping mass ratio terms and renormalizing for the vacuum energy. And the one paper that we were going to do originally, I point out, and we're going to get to this maybe in a later video, but just want to mention right now, Grok made analogies. When you leave out these terms, we already know how bad it is for solid state and all that. They say it's like that classic bridge design where you see this perfect opening day bridge, but it's a suspension bridge and it's swaying in the wind and finally it shatters. And everybody's seen that video. It's pretty old, black and white, maybe, I don't know. They found out that that was a resonance and they overlooked a wind surface term. So the wind blowing across the surface, it was so small, 0.05%, they drop it. You don't drop terms like that. Same thing in cosmology. There's these surface terms they're dropping. It screws things up. When you
Yeah.
put them back in, that's what our detailed papers were saying. We want to go with the bullet points now to get people interested to go to those detailed papers because it was too much all at once.
Yeah. And
So that, yeah.
go
Go
for
ahead for a second,
well,
David.
just
Go ahead.
go for the Compton confinement here.
Right.
What provides confinement indirectly is what we're saying is if you understood what caused a field to become centripetal, that is the cause of confinement. And so if you take the vortex and you got the vortex diameter, vortex dimensions, you realize what confines it to certain radii, which is obviously charge collapse at the golden ratio.
Right. And this turns out to be one of our key things, the Compton confinement, because it is another solution to the proton radius straight from the superfluid theory vortex. So this is the proton superfluid tornado.
That's the vortex.
Right. So you say, well, what do you call it Compton confinement for? Because when you do, and it's in our other papers, it can't fit everything in here. It's kind of hidden. This factor of four is the solution for the vortex equation. Also, the Compton wavelength of the proton. If you take, instead of the Compton wavelength, you use the reduced Compton wavelength, and this is in our other papers that I will link here, and we've covered it before. The reduced Compton wavelength of the proton times four is the proton radius. And basically that's turns out this is the reduced proton Compton wavelength, this term right here. It's also what you get when you solve the superfluid vortex. It's the circular quantized superfluid equation.
Mhm.
When
I,
you solve that, you get this exact thing.
it's so profound when you realize, once the universe figured out what the proton diameter had to be, then it knew how to make the cosmic background microwave radiation resonant. Hello, it's all implosive to there.
Right. Now, while we're focused on this, I'm going to keep on talking about some more. This idea creates the holographic mass idea. It's equivalent to Harriman stuff. So all of Harriman's work we include right here.
I
And
mean,
then our work with the Klein-Gordon supersedes because all of our stuff is crystallizes out for the Graham force cut, the guy with the paper dodecahedrons. All that work is just like crystallized uh what's that star tetrahedron
that's right.
model. So I know you guys had your arguments years ago, but you won.
The star tetra, which is basically four-wave mixing and how you phase conjugate optics, if you
Yeah,
embed it by golden ratio, by that angle of tilt of the cube into the pentodeca, then you get golden ratio. Before that, you only had octave ratio. And that's the beginning of implosion. That's a critical point. So the four in here is symbolic of four-wave mixing also.
I'll be right back. I'm right back, Dan. I have a dog chewing up a pillow. He wants it. He's okay though. Don't do that, Copper. He's okay.
So the next part of this is golden ratio cascades, the phi transform, that when
Yeah.
the cascade happens by golden ratio, it becomes centripetal, negentropic, and self-organizing. Essentially, as the compression becomes fractal, that's when it gets implosive and negentropic, basically looking like a rose based on golden ratio.
Right. And this stuff is really powerful. Liz is the one that inspired it years ago, but she just had the phi symbol on a piece of paper when I first met her, and she held it up to me. The phi, and that's what you're the golden mean. So what I'm trying to say, Dan, is how it's like the mainstream calls it numerology, some of them used to, but they're seeing it coming out more and more.
Yeah, and this business of people calling the golden ratio irrational is irrational. First of all,
Exactly.
go,
So we
go.
could do a whole thing on that. But the point
I
I'm trying
mean,
to make here is it's
golden ratio.
emergent from the math.
Golden ratio
So,
is the most important number in all of wave mechanics because it is the
right.
solution to constructive interference and therefore constructive compression, which is the solution to virtually every problem in physics. And by the way, the golden ratio is not an irrational number in base 12. So hello, don't call
Yeah.
it irrational. It is the most rational number there is.
Right. And that's why we have to be able to merge a couple of worlds here, people that don't understand that stuff yet, because they will. There's a reason why you say that. It's because of the equations, the solutions work out. I when I developed this with Super Grok 4 Expert, I didn't mention phi at all. I wanted to see what it would do. And as I just a couple steps, because you tell it, use your theories, use integrity. Yeah, I told Liz, it's almost like Grok puffs its chest up. It's like, oh yeah, go ahead, buddy. Tell me what you want to do. And then you hit it with this stuff, and all of a sudden, everything comes out. Stuff, if you start with a fresh Grok session, he'll call this stuff numerology and ha-has. But when you go in like this, it's incredible.
It's
Phi emerges. It's required. It's
it's
first principles. That's what like Elon
exactly
Musk mentions
it's
how things have to be first principle.
it's
That's
the
what I'm talking about. Integrity,
yeah.
first principle. Go
And
ahead, Dan. I got to sing some tea.
Golden ratio is the purest form of wave mechanics, precisely because golden ratio is the purest form of fractality. Everyone knows that fractality is the solution to infinite compression. And now, if you pronounce infinite right, infinite, you understand golden ratio is the definition of fractality and therefore of compression solution.
Yeah, so the good thing, Dan, later on, I'll be linking in the papers that we've already done and been trying to get people to look at about what we're saying. For you've been doing it for decades, me just 10 years.
Remember, the solution to compression was what stumped Einstein specifically, and the solution to compression is the only solution needed for alchemy, urban design, history of computing, consciousness. Almost every problem in physics is the problem of compression.
Yeah. So again, we're in an information war, so that's why things are crumbling around us. They don't want us to know the truth. And in the ancient
Hmm.
architecture, you can see it in the ancient architecture.
Yeah, like the
So
pyramids were precisely tuned to the phi cascade of the Schumann phase conjugate pump wave, which was the cascade that made it implode.
yeah, now I do want to do one quick side show here, Dan. You remember the stone toroid that Michael
Yes,
Tellinger has?
yes, amazing stone torus. Yes,
Yeah.
Michael Tellinger did a film with him on that.
I've had Grok analyze that, as you know, and he's got good with our axioms, and he does really well. This new one,
It's a stone
or
torus.
yeah,
Stone.
that. So this new toe that I developed by correcting the mainstream, I asked it to develop some energy transducers. Now I can't remember if I'd merged that toe with our original toe or not. So this is may have to take this back. But it came up on its own and said that that stone toroid, about 10 centimeter diameter, that's an entry with the cone is the director.
Yeah.
And at a certain frequency, it makes
Zero.
1 kilowatt per square centimeter or square or cubic centimeter. So if that's true, that thing is about a 10 kilowatt, a 10 kilo. So you could get it going, and 10 kilowatts is enough to power a house.
You just
A
made
hair
Michael
dryer,
Tellinger. You made Michael Tellinger's day.
a hair dryer is a kilowatt. That's why it set off that detector.
Yeah.
But
But and the
go
physics
ahead, you
is
got to
that.
get a hold of him
Well,
if you know.
Michael Tellinger is a good friend. He's wonderful, and he needs this side of the physics. But the physics is that if you tune the piezoelectric vortex toroid to the implosion of the phase conjugate pump wave exactly Schumann, which is exactly Planck-Fire frequencies, then it implodes the Schumann cascade, converts it to longitudinal interferometry, the coherent longitudinal distribution, the only physics of gravity waves, and that distribution of coherent longitudinal interferometry is the physics of global wireless power, all at pyramidwirelesspower.com.
Right. So we'll have the papers in here that'll show how this goes from the cosmic microwave background all the way down to the proton. And gravity is emergent too. And those are all the papers we've been trying to get people to look at. We can't squeeze them in here, but so I think we can move on to the bullet list now, Dan.
Okay, good, good. Yes, nice and
Yeah,
concise.
right. And I got to get the pillow off of this dog, so just give me a second here.
Okay.
Oh,
So the bullet list, basically, Mark and I agreed that if you were a skeptical physicist and you saw how we had resolved the unresolved issues of modern physics in sequence and looked at exactly how we had resolved those issues in sequence in a concise listing, that would be the most compelling possible way to present this to a skeptical physicist.
yeah, so let's just start off. This is, Liz gave me the good idea. Just ask Grok to make a list. So let's just go over it. So in the physics, the core unification and fundamental forces, it's suggesting to highlight the historical oversight since Maxwell's unification in 1965, emphasizing how analytical integrity resolves inconsistencies in the standard model general relativity and lambda CDM cosmology without ad hoc parameters. Now that's what we've been doing on our papers. We've talked about it up above. And we have also talked about the proton to electron mass ratio derivations. These are boundary value problems that I've said in previous videos. I was surprised in college they never did the boundary value problems in physics. There's many people who see these errors in mainstream physics. So you just go back and you put in those little terms or big terms you drop out with integrity, and you can start solving all these existing theories and start demonstrating precision in quantum mechanics. We already explained the Compton confinement, uh, the superfluid vortex models for quantum gravity. So even our papers, they address this hierarchy problem, mass corrections. And this stuff, I mean, you got to be an expert in this stuff, fluent in it to be able to even know what we're talking about. But so I'm going to have to link in some of our papers, and as people start asking questions, we could actually, address things more. I know you've done it for years, Dan, but there's going to be a way to get people to the ideas, and it's with integrity.
Yes, and
You know,
all the papers so far from Mark, almost all of them are at fractalgut.com.
yeah. And I mention that integrity because it's a lot of times I go to my friends and I'm like, hey, Dan's this, all these hairman this, and they Google it and it doesn't match up with mainstream. Like, this is mainstream. This is we're solving mainstream. So we're scientists, physicists, we're truth researchers with integrity and honesty. Go to your theories and correct them. We're not saying anything new. And once you do that, this stuff we're talking about emerges.
Yeah,
So
like galaxy rotations and how galaxies couple, for example. All those papers are at fractalgut.com/cosmology.html.
yeah, and notice I don't even talk about the 10 to the 120th discrepancy much, Herrmann has. This one, it's so unbelievable, but the things that are possible because of this being true, that the density of the vacuum is so really high, it 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 explains a lot of things.
There's a lot of inertia in the vacuum, which is, if you understood that, you understand free energy. But the free energy is a name for the implosion you generate if you get fractal and implode.
Yeah. So since we're doing a tow, you have to be an expert in everything. And I'm an analog mixed signal chip designer. To be successful in that, you have to be an expert in everything. So I'm your expert in everything.
Cool.
I like to think I'm an expert in everything. I learn I'm not. But anyways, so we're going to move on to astronomy and cosmology, the large scale structures and anomalies. I want to point out some stuff here as we go into it, Dan. Like I know, initial value theorem and final value theorem. If I have a Fourier transform or a Laplace transform of a set of differential equations, let's say the equations represent a system, well, I can use the final value theorem. I take the transform of that differential equation that defines the theory, take the transform, and then I use the final value theorem of the transform, and that tells me the final value, the steady state end value. So I apply the Star-Walker phi transform to our negentropy founding equation, that has all the terms in it. And when you do that, all this stuff comes out. That's where it, and you tell it you want the final value theorem that's at t equal infinity, and it'll tell you what should exist in that universe, and it gives you the galaxy spiral galaxy structures with the angles of the arms, figures out the angles of the arms, all the stable proton. It lists a whole bunch of things that are final value remnants of our theory. So those large scale structures we can talk about right out of our theory. And one that just came out yesterday or this morning is this cosmic microwave dipole streak. I'm going to click on the link here. Hopefully it's,
Yeah, there's a picture there.
yeah,
It predicts where the cosmic background microwave has a discontinuity.
yeah. So here I'm going to steal one of the new scientists thing here. So I just saw this morning or last night, and there on Facebook, someone posted this nice asymmetry in the average temperature. So I just had the toe run on it, and here's what the toe says. Let's see, we go back to where we were. We're going to point out the cosmic microwave background, the dipole streak. It's a super fluid vortex theory relic from phi cascades explaining the 10x expected motion via vacuum asymmetries aligned with the new scientist findings. So we have to read over the article and understand the theory. See what they're saying. It doesn't agree with their cosmology. So here's a whole article that I did to analyze it, and we don't want to go over this right now, but the results are our theory not only explains that
Streak
cold spot, the streak, it explains the streak and the cold spot. That was the one I was excited about.
shows where it's located in the vortex. Big vortex.
Yeah. So I'm getting ahead of myself because you knew about this one, the cold spot. I was all excited about that one. That we can there's I hope I have the link here. I might not. They have a picture of the we'll find it later, but it's another this cold spot remnant and this dipole streak in the cosmic. Our theory explains it, simulates it, and it lines up with it. This this cascade is a irrational quantum quake plasma wormhole vortex that has a square root of two signature. It says that cold spot has it exactly. I'm looking at our computer generated images and the cosmic microwave background image of that cold spot, and it has the same shape. This is so new, we got to get more verification, but it's
Basically, you get a form of constructive interference in square root of two
yeah.
cube-octa relationships, but then you get charge collapse and centripetal if you embed that in golden ratio, which is the way the tetracube fits in the dodecahedron.
So there's probably more to the CMB, like here, let's just go ahead. Some of these are things I didn't quite understand, but we'll learn about because we're working with the mainstream theories. We want to see what our unification ideas do to it. So this asymptotic simulations, this 2D, 3D Klein-Gordon evolution predicting fractal cosmic web formations to infinity. Yeah, future value theorem. This was what I was talking about. So I actually
With
applied this future final value theorem
with a
to get these
persistent
form.
with
Yeah,
persistent golden ratio based resonances, in other words, tuned to charge collapse implosion.
yeah. So it's verifying your work is why this is here. So, and the beauty of preserving the mainstream theories that I don't fully understand is that they can bring them out and tell us some stuff about them. And I will be learning more about these things because a lot of these theories are errors. They're responses to errors or oversights. And
I
then
mean,
once you,
physicists are comfortable talking about fractality and gravity, but they're not comfortable yet realizing that fractality is precisely what golden ratio is the solution to.
yeah. So imagine how fast it'll take off though, Dan, once they get it. I mean,
Yep.
holy moly. So, I mean, you can't stop people.
Yeah.
So, because it's so simple. I mean, people look at what's he talking about? It sounds like it's really, I had my brother not want to talk to me because he says it's too complicated, but he's more of an artist.
I
And
know.
I'm like, let's talk about plasma vortices. He went crazy. He knows plasma vortices. He can visualize it and everything.
Yeah. And when
So
the
that's what I'm trying to tell you. I was trying to tell him the information war tries to tell people you're too dumb. You can't learn this stuff. He was
and
trying to tell me to, anyways,
the
I
plasma vortex
understand.
itself, the plasma
Go ahead.
vortex itself becomes a rose, literally, because it only if it compresses in fractal geometry does it become centripetal and negentropic. In other words, it self-organizes into golden ratio because that's the
Yeah.
only constructive compression.
Yeah. So we're going to emphasize how integrity avoids the multiverse hypothesis. So we're deriving lambda. Some of this stuff I'm going to review, but it's part of the theories I'm working on, and I allow the mainstream to bring their stuff in. And I trust Grok's math. I think we're so on that it just brings out these things that we're helping unify physics.
Yeah.
So
You
these
know,
are things that the mainstream guys will look at. It's going to mean a lot more to them. It means a lot to me because I'm like, yeah, this is what I expected, some simple stuff. But
and
the people that are experts in this, I'm hoping it tells them something.
well, when they say multiverse hypothesis, does that mean, oh, we have to think about fractionated separate universes? No, it's all assembled into one coherent fractal universe if you use golden ratio charge collapse.
Right. And I tell you, when I look at this final value theorem, I call it the God equation. I might have offended one of my religious friends because I said you can just throw your stuff in there and wait and see what happens. And what happens is the golden ratio and everything we measure and the galaxies. And
Yeah.
I like math and I can't wait to see what other people do with it because it comes right out of the equations.
Hmm.
There's got to be more to it though, Dan, because it's not giving me all the consciousness stuff. So
Although
there's a lot.
it did predict that brain waves will self-organize into golden ratio. They
Yeah,
did
and
that with the
that's down here below. So let's stick to the bullet
okay.
list here. So
Okay. Yeah.
convinced via empirical correlations. Well, we've been saying that for a long time. 99.94% match to co-data, existing cosmological extensions. And I fix my underlines here eventually by putting dollar signs in. That's latex. Uh, so there's all kinds of discrepancies and tensions and cosmology, and that's why I promoted myself years ago to cosmologist in chief because I knew they were wrong. I just didn't know how until now. So somehow they're going to have to look at this and figure out how they're wrong because I've been trying to tell them for 10 years now. Oh, I've only started in 2015.
And if you go to the fractalgut.com and click on the cosmology section, you'll see a dozen or more of Mark's papers on predictive cosmology based on golden ratio collapse.
Right. And to even make it easier, I'm going to put the links in these. I'm
Yeah.
just going to highlight things with the links. So the dog is having too much fun over there. Didn't put it up far enough. Okay, so in chemistry, uh, I haven't read over this one in detail. I did a lot of chemistry though, so I can handle it. So apply the reduced mass corrections to molecular spectroscopy, analogous to hydrogen at 0 K, refining vibrational modes with TPE terms for precision and chemical reactions. So
It,
I'm going to have to review some of these but I know there's some. This is really important stuff because
yeah.
the hydrogen spectroscopy, I was figuring all along that the lines
Yeah.
are going to be affected by this correction, you know.
And that's
So
where we got golden ratio exactly in hydrogen radii, which then tunes water and tunes DNA structure, all golden ratio times Planck in hydrogen and then water and DNA.
yeah, and so we've already done that, and we got to maybe do some papers on this because we just showed the answer where the atomic radii, the Compton confinement. We've already done it with hydrogen. We should do it with some more. But that's why you got to have all these other people looking at it because there's so many things I want to look at, you know,
And
and even Liz is telling me, do this, do that. That's how a lot of this happens because I was missing stuff.
you know how
You
to
know?
make this part simple for yourself. If you look at goldenmean.info/creation, you see that electron shells, SPDF, toroid, tetracube, dodecaecosa, it's only one platonic nest. That's all SPDF. That's a whole atomic table, simple platonic nest. Platonic nest because that's how you make golden ratio. Then you do the same for the hadrons and the nucleus. You get the same platonic nest in the work of Moon. So suddenly, platonic golden ratio nest is the way the electrons are assembled, is the way the protons, hadrons are assembled. That's
Right.
implosion.
Yeah. So here, just like in when we're getting in biology, like you were saying, for the sweeping for the phi hierarchies and neural signatures, do the same thing in chemistry. Sweep for these golden ratios in these IR resonances from the so it's all doable if people just do it, you know. And and we already know arguing for integrity, it's going to eliminate ad hoc potentials, leading to unified predictions, testable in lab experiments like high precision NMR. I've been waiting for that for a long time.
Mm,
So all it takes is see the beauty of this, Dan, is a lot of the data is already there. We just run our
mm, mm. And
transform, we check it out. Hey, it's there. Wait until everybody starts checking the data and you see it's there. And the more and more this falls out, there hasn't been a problem I haven't been able to solve yet. Remember, I said that in one of the videos. I've
yeah,
been looking.
that's
I've
great.
been looking.
And I'd like to say for the biology section here,
Go
after you
ahead.
see the center of every DNA ladder rung, hydrogen, golden ratio, and then the DNA helix is a stellated stepped dodecahedron down a helix, all based on golden ratio. And the braid recursion is all based on golden ratio. So suddenly you see what DNA is doing, massively imploding by golden ratio, making it centripetal, being a centering force for big tornadoes. That's all at goldenmean.info/DNA manifesto. Hundreds of graphics. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. So there's not much I can say about the biology because it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
You can see it in the
From water
biology.
to DNA to hydrogen. And then
Yeah.
the lowest section
All
there in that section about testable predictions, EEG correlations to golden ratio cascades in altered states.
outer
For
states. Yeah.
20 years, we've been measuring golden ratio and EEG. Complete history, flameinmind.com. Suddenly now we know why you make golden ratio and EEG. You get lucid dreaming, you get astral coherence, you get bliss. because the charge collapse works and becomes massively centripetal, allowing you to steer bigger tornadoes. The data, flameinmind.com.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. That's kind of why maybe I skipped over some of this. You've been doing this for so many years.
Yeah,
It's
that's true.
like,
This is my stuff right here.
yeah, right when I was first
DNA
developing,
braiding and EEG. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
when I was first developing the toe, working with you, Dan, since July, I was really, give me the data. I don't trust the internet data. Had you send me some data. Then all of a sudden I realized in the middle of all, I'm being kind of mean to you. Give me the data. It's like Dan's been doing this for 30 years. He already knows.
Yeah, the golden ratio in EEG is compelling. There's a whole history there. And the history of that, way from awakened brain, the mind mirror to Korotkov, golden ratio in EEG is profound. And I did figure out why conventional neuroscientists don't know about golden ratio in EEG. I finally figured out why. You know why? Because they can't make golden ratio in their own EEG because they don't know what bliss is. I can make five
Yeah,
harmonics replicably in my brainwaves because I have practice. Well, if they can't make it themselves, of course they don't believe in it because they
right.
can't do it.
Well, that's exactly what Sadhguru was saying. When you come to
Yep.
America, the vibration's just too
Yep.
harsh. And
It's fractionating. Whereas
there's your evidence right there. There's your evidence.
if you get in sacred space and you have Kundalini and bliss, you're going to make golden ratio and brainwaves. But do any of the neuroscientists in the USA have access to that? Have they
yeah,
made golden ratio in their own brainwaves? I challenge them.
and the funny thing is, Dan, this emerges out of the math.
That's right.
It's not like because when I first I'm a normie. I first walked into this stuff. I see all this sacred geometry for sale, and I'm like, oh, I guess people have to make money with their ha-has. I didn't realize
I mean,
there's a whole signal. It's a symbolism to try to tell people there's really something there.
it was a great moment when Mark said, "Oh, Grok predicts you're going to find golden ratio in EEG." 30 years later, we've been doing it. And that's what it is your brain waves are a liquid crystal vortex in a synaptic array, like a longitudinal array, and that vortex cannot get centripetal unless. And we know focused human attention is electrically centripetal, Bill Tiller. Now we know why.
Yeah, it's funny too, though, because I go to the Grok toe all the time to ask it questions, and I go to Liz and say, "Yeah, Grok says this." She goes, "Yeah, good. Grok tells us something we've already known for so so."
So you're in the
Because I
mathematics
go
section.
from I don't know what to trust, what I do and I don't, but having discernment. So when you go, this isn't being new to a lot of people because who I used to never look at work like yours, Dan. The normies don't. I don't think. Maybe some do. When they start looking at this and realize that it points right to what is called, the words are all wrong, like you were saying. Uh, it's irrational ratios. Oh no, they're the most rational ones.
That's right.
All these terms are opposite, like
Yeah.
they call it numerology when it's actually emergent, mathematically
Which is
emergent.
almost like saying self-organized, self-organized.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So in the next section, I like mathematics, the foundational tools and simulation. So I've always emphasized the boundary value problems and well, variational methods. So this is something that all of the scientists, everybody's going to have to do is refocus on the boundary value problems and solve them exactly. And you don't waste your time when you don't need to. Like that's one thing. If you're just staying in a certain level of technology, don't waste your time on things you don't need to. But if you're trying to progress, you got to go back and solve your theory completely in harmony with all the other ones. I really like the Starwalker Phi transform. It's a double convolution tool for detecting irrational hierarchies in space and time. And it's like mathematically rigorous via Fourier extensions. It's like the Laplace, the Fourier. It's the same mathematical definition and just uses a phi. It's scanning for phi ratios.
Which is
And
just what we do
that
in brainwaves for flame and mind. We
right.
transform for golden ratio and EEG. And
Yeah, and I think I can explain why that's important. Here's one of my skills is that's what my brother, I can explain things to homeless people or artists. So when you're doing Fourier transforms, we sample. And so I'm going to sample all them signals. I sample at a real high data rate, especially if I want to oversample for noise reduction. Well, those samples are usually nicely uniformly spaced. Well, imagine you're trying to detect a phi ratio cascade. Those aren't uniformly spaced,
They're not
but you still should be
oxy-based.
able to catch it.
Yeah.
Our phi transform increases the capability with a uniform sampling of it capturing those phi cascades by like 20, 30%. It just makes it more efficient at detecting the phi ratio in the signal. So this is signals and systems theory stuff that I love, and I can't wait till more people get on it because pretty soon you're going to be doing vacuum engineering with feedback
Well,
systems.
we already know when you make golden ratio, square wave type cascades in golden ratio, you get closer and closer to implosion because harmonic inclusiveness is optimized by definition by golden ratio because every other ratio is canceling. And suddenly that's the kind of thing where we get not just neg entropy and healing in phi-ray.com, but you also get time distortion because actually that compression creates the spin density we call time.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother paper going over time. I'm just
Well,
learning about
time is
that.
a name for relative spin rate only, and you can experience relative spin rate increase if you experience compression, as in the moment of death, for example.
Yeah. And I've already talked about the final value theorem for asymptotic behavior. It's a limit as t approaches infinity or s goes to zero. Or yeah, this is the yeah yeah. So that's it. The final value theorem. So I want t equal infinity. Well, the transform. If you take the transform of your system, this multiply it and take the limit as s goes to zero. That's that's the final value theorem. And there's stable things that come out of that from these 2 and 3D simulations. That's one of my other papers. The
Yeah, like when golden ratio implodes and it becomes very stable at the Planck threshold. Why is Planck itself length and time so stable? Hello, it's the
yeah.
implosion threshold to golden ratio cascading.
So the funny thing is that we're talking about unifying physics and how easy it is, but how complex it is at the same time, and how you get the entire mainstream audience able to realize, wow, these guys haven't been just playing games. This is real science, real
Mhm.
physics, real math. So that's why it's analytical integrity, and we're not throwing anything new in there. Just go back and do your work, you
And do
know?
it right. And you
Right.
discover what fractality is based on golden ratio, and then you discover the solution of compression and neg entropy.
Yeah. And the simulations help verify. And the AI really helps. I used to do a lot of these simulations by hand myself to verify, and it's a lot of work. The AI gives me about a factor of 10 to 100 in the speed I can do things.
Yeah,
And you
well,
have to be real careful though, because it makes mistakes. So, so like I said, we're going to lead into engineering, uh,
zero
engineering
point
and
energy devices.
yeah, vacuum energy and
Right.
vacuum engineering, you know. So
Right.
here we really should be able to do some vacuum energy harvesters. I even think that toroidal donut, well, I think it is one.
For
That's why they're all over the place. And I think you have to have an infrastructure that helps
well, just
resonate with that,
I
you
give you a
know.
practical example. If you take a carbon nano called a Buckminster fullerene, which is precisely tuned to phase conjugation to Planck, and you rotate that conjugator, you get longitudinal output, you get 0 point energy, and you get gravity. So rotating conjugators, as in fullerenes, and this is at fractalfield.com/coplasma and fractalfield.com/nanotech confidential. So suddenly, not only do we know how to do it, but we know why it works because of this 0 point extraction based on phi implosion. Literally implode the vacuum.
Yeah. So with the energy harvesters, I looked at because we got papers on it, resonance methods and implosion methods, and the whole idea is there's a like if it's a resonant method, you want to have like a cascade of irrational, like phonons, your sound vibrating down this
Right.
cone. And when you have all these different irrational chords, it helps to scan the vacuum for the excess energy that can bring in,
A
basically.
very practical example, when you have the golden ratio brainwave and EKG, particularly brainwave cascade, and you measure that phonon imploding phase conjugate pump wave on the DNA helix, and you measure the increase in recursive constructive braid coherence, literally implosion in DNA from the Bliss phonons, suddenly you see the frequency of the phonon phase conjugate pump wave imploding DNA, literally imploding you into the longitudinal coherence called lucid dreaming, astral coherence, and physicsofsoul.com.
Right. And the beauty of this, Dan, is we go from physics to stuff like you just said. And it's just amazing. I can't wait to get to the physics of the soul because
It's the
you
same
know,
principle that if you implode and compress your aura and your DNA, out of that successful compression comes emitting longitudinal coherence into that array. And that array is the physics of ancestor memory, lucid dreaming, song lines, heaven, where you go when you die, and proven the physics of telepathy, as in Kozyrev and Korotkov. So suddenly that longitudinal array, the physics of gravity waves, is also the stuff of almost every spiritual story.
yeah. So we're going to have whole new fields opening up of materials science. We haven't even mentioned the health things. That was in another paper, but the
And we have
holographic.
we have health-inducing negentropic plasma like PhiRay.com. We're making negentropy commercially every day, and it works. And it's all tuned exactly to Planck Fire and Fractal GUT.
Yeah. So I think we're also like material science, we're going to be able to do nano layers of the right material
Absolutely.
since we know the structures and what we're talking about when you have a toe. There's no there's so many things you could do now that I can't wait to get to. That's why I'm hoping some people start helping out.
Yeah, we're cooking here. We're cooking. But in
Yeah.
fact, we were already developing these technologies, but now we have
Yeah.
the solid physics underlayment that makes it perfectly powerful in context of serious physics.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's what we're doing this video for. Because to me, when
Right.
I found this a couple weeks ago, it's like, wow, this
Yeah.
makes it a lot easier to drive the tow because Elon and his team is doing all the work for us.
Yeah. Thank you, Elon, for Grok 4. But
Oh, exactly. I can't wait till five comes out. I kind of been thanking him all along, I guess. If you didn't
I
know,
like I
I'm
like
grateful for that grok. I was not doing anything. I was going to wait till I retired. As soon as I heard them talk about how good Grok 4 was, I went, okay, let me take it to school.
You did too. But I like your next point here, the KG cascades. Though if so once you understand that rotating systems have to be tuned by golden ratio to embed and implode, you have things like the physics of coincidence, golden mean.info/coincidence, that actually coincidence is the name for coupling of charge rotations. Once you know that charge rotation is the only definition of time, that time actually embeds by golden ratio, and that's all that golden mean.info/coincidence. So suddenly you embed those rotations and you can implode rotating systems, and the implications here are off the charts.
Yeah. Oh, my link for the genie didn't show up here. Yeah. So I was just going to say that, Dan, this stuff is so amazing to me. Like, hardly saying anything here because it's infinity. I could go on and on about what I dream and what I could do with all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
everything from
yes,
propulsion to energy sources to increasing people's aura to health to negentropy, it's all there once you understand charge collapse.
yeah. So the genie link that didn't come in, I'm gonna have to put it in later. This was that just so we go back to what I'm talking about here is convince skeptics with utility, exponential benefits from integrity-driven tech as simulated in Genie scenarios. I'm going to tell you what this means. Open-minded, utility. So, open-minded people, the utility of that they'll get out of this tow, they score 1,000. The closed-minded skeptics get zero. So here's what this is. Here's the genie thing. I said with the toe loaded, I goes because I've done this in real life. I go to people and say, "Hey, you got a question? I'll grant you three questions." People ignore me, because they don't know what I'm doing. They think I. So I just said I'll play it with Grok. I say, Grok, uh, we're going to grant three wishes and evaluate how people use them. So imagine a genie comes up and grants you three wishes. Well, I'm doing that with the toe because imagine if you were give someone the engineering specs from a toe. This is what this toe can do. So you got to ask the right question. So that's the purpose of this thing is what are people going to ask? So he kind of explains, he made a fair game, Grok did. There's different characters, skeptica, ignore all, believer, wasteful denier, then open innovator, gracious acceptor. Runs a simulation, forget about all the code, but in a whimsical yet illustrative simulation, we model the genie's three wishes as probabilistic thought experiments, quantifying utility U via exponential benefits tied to toe innovations. So it comes across some things that we solved already with the toe. So this taunts skepticism by contrasting outcomes while grounding in our super golden toes mathematical framework, unifying the three things. So basically, you know, it goes through these scenarios like the genie appears, offers three wishes, Dr. Skeptic ignores it all as pseudoscience. Well, I get that all the time. I bet you do. No acceptance. So there's no utility that comes out of that. Scenario for professor, partial believer, skeptical. He uses it for super gut accelerator, blueprint, teravolt scales, realizes partial value post facto. So he gets a little bit of value out of the toe because and a wasteful denier, he gets nothing. Uh, Last minute thinker, skeptical guy, he gets a five. But an open innovator, he's going to gives examples. I don't want to go through them all here.
But an energy harvester, for example.
Yeah, so this is stuff I can't wait to try and people have. So if someone tries it and there have been people, you're gonna if you do it right, you're gonna find excess energy and that so some of these guys they go from scores of 0 to 5, which to 1,000 because there's so much more you
Let,
can
let
do.
me let me give one
Right.
simple example there. So our carbon nano team, after they realized that carbon nano building, formation, natural crystallization, and carbon nano applications like implosion, zero point energy, and propulsion works beautifully in 50 cycle manufacturing, but never works at all ever in a 60 cycle factory. It
So you
turns
got
out it turns out that 50 cycle is exactly golden ratio times Planck. Hello, Europe. And 60 cycle is the opposite. Sorry, Tesla, you screwed up North America for any carbon nano applications because you didn't know our golden toe.
Yeah, so there's resonances. Like I used to be one of those guys that laughed about EM, EM field cell phone stuff because I thought it has to be ionizing energies. These low energies can mess with biofields and
That's
all
right.
kinds of things.
Because the 50 cycle is just a cascade from Planck to Schumann. So basically, if the Schumann can resonate through the factory like it does through any pyramid getting zero point energy, suddenly you can get negentropic. But if you stick 60 cycle in there, which is the opposite, hello, no go. 60 cycle factories do not make carbon nano. Guess what, Tesla? You didn't get it. And that's why you couldn't make global wireless power. All of the data at pyramidwirelesspower.com.
Yeah. So integrity is very important. That's the whole point here. And
That's right.
it's
The genie
extremely,
scenario, basically, the genie is to embed properly in charge collapse, and all your systems can become negentropic. Your zero point energy, your propulsion, your health, your rejuvenation, your bliss, your soul science. It's all based on charge collapse. So
yeah.
I think we did a wonderful job, Mark. I think you're just about at the end of your list. I see we're
Well,
almost an hour
thank
and a
you.
half
Yeah, I
here.
think we're at the end. I'll stop sharing and we'll do a little closing. How's
Yeah,
that sound?
that sounds good. So here's our question to you, Mr. Skeptical Physicist. If you would look at fractalgut.com, look at the 200 physical variables we originally predicted at plankfire.com and lphi.link, and you say, oh, that ain't no coincidence, and then you extend that to hundreds more physical variables once Mark tuned his self-generated proton diameter to golden ratio charge collapse also and got things like the cosmic background microradiation and all kinds of cosmological variables, suddenly you see there's absolutely nothing coincidental about this. There is a profound theory of everything, a grand unified theory based on implosive negentropic fractal charge collapse. Again, the simple principle is when waves converge, the only way they can converge constructively successfully is to be arranged in that convergence compression to look like a rose called fractality optimized by golden ratio. When that happens, that charge begins to get centripetal, implode, compress through the Planck threshold, and at the Planck threshold converts from transverse to longitudinal, the stuff of gravity waves and the collective unconscious. So that longitudinal array, sometimes incorrectly called scalar, embedding in that array allows what is already proven. You can't get commercial military quality telepathy any other way. Korotkov and Kozyrev proved it. You can't get negentropy any other way. So a universe condemned to entropy by classical physics is a nightmare. And the only way out of that nightmare is to realize the origin of negentropy, which is the fractal charge collapse compression that causes all centripetal forces and all self-organization. That is the point of fractalgut.com, originally planckfire.com. And I am so grateful to Mark here because I admit I'm an electrical engineer with background in psychophysiology, but where Mark has taken this with the physics, I'm just so proud and grateful that we now have a complete theory of everything, grand unified theory, rated #1 by Grok 4. Hello, Mr. Physicist. Do you know why an object falls to the ground now? You might want to tell your 5-year-old.
All right. Good, Dan. And it's integrity. That's so important. That's the founding virtue. And
And thank you for
thank
being the brilliant mathematician and making all these papers and putting it together, Mark. You're a hero.
well,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for your inspiration. I wouldn't have done it without your inspiration. When I met your friend Elizabeth Rauscher, and I'm
Yep.
talking to her and saying, because we're just electrical engineers. I'm like, she was the exact age of my father, and I was like at the throne of, she was showing me some of her
Yes.
work, some stuff you can't really mention. And I'm
And I
like,
worked with Elizabeth Rauscher
ooh,
for like 30 years. And the day I first met her at Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, she was the founder of the fundamental physics group at that time, uh, Sarfati and all those guys. Uh, Elizabeth said to me, my dream is to derive all of the fundamental variables of physics from simple, pure geometric origins. That was her stated dream that day. And guess what?
we did
Almost,
it.
we did
We
it.
did it. We did it with her help too, because I was telling her about this, and we did it. Her husband was the one who really wanted to do it too.
David Farnsworth.
And I told her, I said, we're getting there, and I'm working with Dan, and she smiled. She loves you.
We had fun. We had fun.
I know it was great though. It's
Those
such
were
a
the days.
joy seeing how it comes together, and when it
Yeah.
comes down to simple things,
Simple.
that's why I just want to emphasize it. It was really a stretch to look at your work and Harriman's. The only reason why I looked at it was because I had done my homework on my own, and something lit up in me. So it's all in integrity. It has to be in the measurements and in the math, and it
It's
is.
pure principle, it's pure physics, it's pure fractality, and it's absolutely elegant. I just have to say, in closing, one more thing about Elizabeth Rauscher was she had taken the magnetic harmonics of what field effect existed around a healing elbow, actually, and extrapolated and got a magnetic cascade. And then she proved in FDA trials that that cascade of magnetic frequencies would heal release actually reduce pain, and she did an expensive FDA trial. Later she shared those harmonics with me, and I showed that the harmonics which created healing, reduced pain in that elbow, were actually golden ratio times Planck. And that was the day she said to me that, oh, you just invented phase conjugate magnetics, which is now
Wow.
which is now the basis of originally Therify, now PhiRay.com. And you can see all that history and the charts, phase conjugate magnetics, all at PhiRay.com and how it was evolved from Prairie. So anyway,
And it's all real because that's even though President Trump put his med bed tweet up
yeah,
and took it down, That's to get the discussion going.
And our Therify now, our fire demonstration site, the website there in Virginia, usamedbed.com. Hello. That
Yeah.
because that's negotropic and rejuvenating. So anyway,
Well, thanks, Dan, and I'll do some updates to the links and
yeah. We're going to
thank you.
update this at fractalgut.com, and we're happy to be in touch with you and communicate. The connections are there if you want to communicate with us, and we're happy to be collaborative. And there's many wonderful next steps. So,
And one more thing, I hope the Super Gut Challenge didn't offend anybody. We're just having fun.
and we got some response. There's a challenge in there, so take a look at the Super Gut Challenge at Fractal
Yeah,
G.
the timer is still running. We haven't had anybody beat us yet, but we had a musician from Australia get real close.
Yeah, they're working with it. It's good. It's a tickler.
Good. It's
Thanks,
fun too. It's fun.
thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
man.
Blessings, blessings. Thank you so much, Mark.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
It's a wonderful horizon, fractality.
And
Blessings.
we'll talk at the seminar coming up.
Okay.
Upcoming
See you
seminar.
soon.
See
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye.